Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're your hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every weekday, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can find all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues affecting you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
Canceling doors.
Okay, all right. Good afternoon. This is May 8th. The Tree Advisory Committee meeting is beginning at 4:04. Call to order. First thing we're going to do is introductions. So we have a new alder on the committee. I'll just start with myself. I'm Linda Brewer. That's it.
And what's your name?
Okay.
I'm Anna Healy. I'm the Urban Forester Naturalist for the City of Fitchburg.
Hi everyone, I am Micah Latisse. Just Micah. I'm the new alder for District 4. So Nicole and I are now the two District 4 alders. So I know Nicole is with you for the last year. I've actually met with her, so she told me all about what you have been doing. Told me nothing but wonderful things about this group.
They're all true.
All the things are true. So I'm looking forward to working with everyone.
Yeah, great, welcome.
Thanks for being my alder.
Of course.
Do you want us to introduce ourselves?
You know, you can if you want. You're gonna.
We'll wait till our agenda.
That'll be fine. Okay.
I'm Ann Sawyer. Been a member of this committee for a couple of years now.
I'm Terrell Brock. I'm in District 1.
Brandy Hofer. I'm in District 4. Probably right down the street from where you live.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm in Wildwood South, so.
Excuse me?
I'm in Wildwood South, so just the church on Lacey.
Oh, sure.
Through the woods. We'll reference the trees. I'm through the trees, just on the other side on Cambrian Circle. So I walk in that little woodsy area all the time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Very nice.
All right, and then we have two other members who are typically here. One is out of the country. Oh no, I'm not going to say that. One is, they're both unable to be here right now. Craig Rapp and Sue Fiber. So I'm sure we'll see them next time. Oh, yes. Rich.
Hi, Rich Howarth, EOC Environmental Group. I get the pleasure to work with you all over the next 6 months or so as we develop this strategic urban forest management plan. And actually, there'll be a few meetings. I wish I could actually attend it in person today. I've got to travel to my daughter's graduation tomorrow from Stout, so that was a conflict. But anyways, when we get to the agenda item, I can say more about some of the things we're going to be involved with and how the Tree Advisory Committee can play an important role. I'll turn it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Rich. Yeah, very excited. Great.
You're welcome.
All right. So we just need to approve the minutes from the last meeting, which was April 10th.
I move we approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Minutes are approved. The agenda for tonight, public appearances are all related to agenda items. The next thing is the agenda review for today. Are there any recommended changes to the order of the agenda? Okay, if not, have a motion to approve.
Move we approve.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so the first agenda item is the Kyle Seegert Greenway site plan. And when we had met in March, we had discussed a little bit of what was going on with the plan, and then we had it on our agenda. We're aware of it, so we put it on our agenda last time, and we wanted to invite you to give you an opportunity to ask us any questions about the discussion we had and to see what you wanted us to know about the plan.
So we'll introduce ourselves. Go ahead.
I'm Dawn Steegert. I am Kyle Steegert's widow, unfortunately. He died 3 years ago in April. We have 2 sons, Micah.
Really?
Micah Steegert
Nice.
and Evan Steegert. So it's an unusual name, so when I hear it, I'm always glad to hear the name. So yeah, right, exactly. So yeah, my husband died of pulmonary fibrosis, and he had the disease, no cure, other than a lung transplant. He had a double lung transplant, and it didn't fare so well. So not quite 2 years after the lung transplant. So in those final days when we were, having the honest heart-to-heart conversations, I asked him, Kyle, in lieu of flowers, what is there something you want? And he's part of the university. He didn't want anything to go to pulmonary fibrosis. He's just mad at the disease. University, he wondered about that. Then we had this greenway space next to our house, and I don't know if it was him or me, I can't remember, but it kind of came up about a bike repair station because Kyle loved to bike. And he got on that Cap City Trail, which is right behind our house, and rode his bike to work whenever he could, when the weather was conducive, and sometimes even with the big wheels in the snow. So he loved to bike. He loved to clear his head on the bike, and the space next to us, we wondered about the bike repair as well as maybe just a small park of some sort or whatever, just because there were lots of weeds and invasives and whatnot growing in there, and his whole being lit up when that idea came to mind. So that's where we went. We didn't even know if it was possible. We talked to Steve. He said, yes, it's possible. There's things we need to do to go through all that. The city council did approve that in November. So we are very glad.
What's your understanding about what exactly they approved?
Well, let's finish our introductions.
Yeah, okay, sure.
And then we can get into the substance.
So anyway, and I also just want to say, I'm very grateful for a tree advisory committee. My book club just finished reading Birding to Save the World. And it's just a lovely book and so much information. And I really, my mom always have loved the trees, but definitely have a greater respect for the habitats and whatnot that all create are there. So anyway, yeah, so. And I did that without planning. This might be the first meeting I did.
Good job.
Talking about
Thank
that.
you, we're happy you're here.
What was that?
We're happy you're here, thank you.
So I'm Steve Arnold, and today my role is as representing Bike Fitchburg. Bike Fitchburg is a 501c3 charity, and obviously locally based. We're the biking and walking advocacy organization for the city. And Bike Fitchburg is the financial agent for this project. So we have raised a bunch of money, and so as treasurer of Bike Fitchburg, I'm the kind of steward of that money. And the other thing is that, as many of you know, I'm a former elected official, and so I know how things can and might work in the city, and so we have been working through the slogging through the process to get this thing done. So let's go back to your question, Linda. What did you ask when I cut you off?
What was it?
Something about approved?
Oh, what was approved? Okay, yes.
I was
So,
trying to piece together the history before we came. But
yeah.
yeah.
Let's, we'll go a little more background. So we had this idea, and I said, all right, this is a great idea, but we don't have a lot of money. And so I started getting help. And one of the places that I asked for help was the University Department of Urban Planning and Landscape Architecture. They merged during this time, but and I knew a professor there, and he referred me to the chair. And the chair, because Kyle had been a professor, he was kind of all in. And what they did was recruited a senior landscape architect student to do a plan as a capstone project. The department paid him to do that. And his name was Will Kegel. If you know about biking, this is the Kegels that own Wheel and Sprocket. He's a nephew of the owners. But by chance, he's a landscape architect student. He did the initial plan. The plan has evolved. We worked on a lot of things, but we took his plan as modified by Katie McDonald. Katie is an engineer. She used to be a member of this body. No, she used to be a member of the Park Commission, sorry. She and a colleague who is a landscape architect have the firm Parkitecture and Planning. And so she is an engineer. We also have the former city transportation engineer, Anna Bijak, is on our team of volunteers to help with any engineering needs. So we brought a resolution to the council, and we asked for it to do three things, and they did that. To approve the name, to approve the concept plan, and to delegate final approval to staff so that we wouldn't have to keep going to the council. And so they set some boundaries on that and approved the concept plan. Subsequently, we made a modification and got it approved by staff. We had originally had a gravel path, if you are familiar with Sunnyside Dog Park in the city. There is a gravel path made out of road grindings. And that was our original idea, and that would have required culverts to carry the path over the from the Capital City State Trail through over the swale that drains the south side of the path. And they would have had to be deep enough to have enough soil over the culvert so that the path would not erode away and so on. And that would have required some grading. And so we were inspired by the grass-mown paths in the Harlan Hills neighborhood along the Cannonball Path. And that goes through a prairie. They're 6-foot wide mowed paths. We said, let's do that. Then when it gets wet, people can just jump over the stream or get their feet wet or stay on the Cap City Trail. And the rest of the time, they'll be able to walk through there just fine, just like they do in that area. And so Katie modified the plan to add an erosion plan. And then we went out and field located where we were going to put the bike furniture. That's a repair stand and some bike parking there on the right edge of where our grass path hits the Cap City Trail. And then subsequent to that, and we measured all the trees out there and determined which ones we felt in consultation with our consultant, Quercus, and Anna, which should be removed. Subsequent to that plan, I have an update which is before you that she just finished, and even it is not done. That shows the prairie going nearly to the
Street.
up the hill
Yeah.
toward the Yarmouth Greenway, and that was not our intention. And so she had this new plan that's before you, and that shows the prairie only to the north side of the grass path, and that's also wrong. The prairie will go to the break-in slope where the flatter area next to the Capital City Trail turns up the slope to the Yarmouth Greenway Drive and the sidewalk. So that's where we are.
More around the path, Steve, right?
What?
It's more just around the path
It's
area, right?
It's around the path.
Yeah, it's not all that green space there, right?
Is the one you get, is this correct?
No, okay, so that shows that color north of the path or toward the top of the figure as prairie, but it will be on both sides of the path, not just the north side. And this will all be field located, and the actual route of the path is kind of speculative, but we have surveyed and marked on the site where the concrete pad at the right will go for the bike furniture, and there will be 3 benches and a little free library somewhere along that path, and it might turn up a little bit toward what I'll call the left corner there. There's be a side branch likely, but that'll be field located and mowed, and then everything will be herbicided and prairie planted this summer.
Herbicided?
Yes, we've got a lot of professional. We use is
that something that the city already uses on their sites?
Yes. So the idea, our original
Okay.
idea was to mow a fire break and to burn it.
So, thank you, because I don't know if everybody knew all of that.
And I just want to say too, regarding the funds, how much is in there right now, Steve? Like
About 15,000.
15,000, and the bike repair stuff is already purchased. And there's more money that can be raised. Kyle had a lot of friends and acquaintances, and people are willing to add more. It's just because nothing's been done yet. I don't feel comfortable asking people for more money until some progress is made. And then once there's progress, I feel like I can show pictures and say, hey, now we're needing more money. But I just haven't been able to. And also, it's in my will. So when I'm gone and my kids take over, there's lots of money there to keep it going.
To do the annual maintenance.
For the maintenance.
So can I ask what your initial budget is?
Well, it's shrunk quite a bit.
This saved a lot of money. And
without the culverts and the grading. The main thing that we still have to pay for is the vegetation management and the planting. Benches and the concrete.
Watering probably too.
Sorry?
Watering?
There will not be water on the site.
I know, but I mean, if you have new plants, you're gonna need to water them.
Yes, we may need to do that.
So are you allowed to hire people to do that work on city property?
Yep.
Hire your own management
They
people?
know about Corcus.
The city attorney is going to set up we thought we were having a memorandum of understanding, but instead, and they have a draft, and it lays out the terms, but it looks like it's going to be a contract instead. And right now, Bike Fitchburg, which is a corporation, is the financial agent, but it's our long-term plan to spin off a nonprofit 501c3, which will be the Friends, which will own the endowment and be our successors to our obligations.
So we're not the decision makers about any of that. It ended up on our agenda because there were initially all the healthy walnut trees were scheduled to be cut down. And that was part of the original plan. So it sounds like there wasn't a lot of attention paid to what kind of vegetation and trees are a good match for this site. And I think that was concerned because Anna is both certified as an arborist and a naturalist. She has lots of great information about that. So prairie is not a good match for this site, period. For lots of very specific reasons that she probably has shared with you and we can talk about now. But
yeah, so I'm just curious, so what is the extent of the prairie on the north side of the path? You said halfway up that hill?
No, to the break and slope between the flat area and the hill.
Yeah,
where the contour lines start to get close together. There is a berm that was probably from erosion control when they originally graded the neighborhood that is through the site there. And we would go up to the base of that berm or maybe the top of that berm. The berm's only a couple feet high and it has a stone weeper in it.
It's just how it's like.
It has a what in it?
Right, that's about right, what you're doing.
A stone weeper is a bunch of rocks that at the low point where the water drains through and the rocks prevent that low point from eroding into a gully. It slows the velocity of any water coming down.
Okay.
The erosion control was designed for when the entire site drained into there. Right now, the watershed is just this side of the sidewalk. But previously, it went all the way up to the, the top of the hill. What's that park there?
Rose Commons.
Yeah. So, obviously super over-engineered for the little bit of water that it gets right now. There's a little bit more water that comes along the path from the homes that are west of there and flows east along the south side of the path and finally into Nine Springs Creek, where Nine Springs Creek comes under the state trail. So it may be that that's not the optimal ecotype for there. What was there was a bramble of invasive species. And our original plan was to have a mowed fire break and burn it. And the professional advice we got from Quercus and from the other, what was that other one?
I don't remember their name, but he came
Yeah, another.
Jensen Ecology.
What?
Was it Jensen?
Jensen Ecology. These are two contractors that the city works with that the city recommended. Both of them said, you don't want to burn it, it's better to herbicide it. And the other thing that we thought of was oak openings. And we felt that to maintain oak openings, we would have to continue to burn it, and we didn't want to burn it.
If you use some other kind of vegetation, do you still need to use the herbicide? I'm just thinking about all the energy and all the money that the city has spent, like on the sustainability plan and the open site plan and the canopy goals we have and keeping our waterways cleared. That's right near a waterway.
Sure.
I mean, so I don't know if you use herbicides, and I'm not, I am certainly not, we are not a decision maker about all these things. It has to do with the city.
Yep.
So
we're
but as
depending
somebody who's been involved in helping getting some of those, policies passed, and a lot of the discussion we have here, I mean.
Can I just ask the question, like, what is the point of having prairie on that north side of the path? I mean, is it just because you want it, or is there a compelling reason, or?
Well, I think that we're looking for more of an open site where you have some sight lines off the path. If you think about McGaw Park, the areas that have not been restored, you walk down this tunnel of invasive shrubbery and there's nothing to see. Whereas if you compare that to the areas that have been managed and are open, you have pretty vistas and you can see across the park and you can see the wildlife in the woods and things like that. So that's a kind of idea we had, was to open up the space.
So I think, which is fine, but I would just say, like, for us, and some people here really are very involved with our prairie restorations here in the city. And when we choose a site for prairie, we tend not to choose a site that's highly modified. And if you look at this site, the reason it's an outlot is because it has MSD infrastructure. So there's probably at least an 8-foot trench there that's got a sewer pipe in it, at least 8 feet, probably deeper. And, so when that infrastructure was put together, there was a lot of soil disturbance. When the railroad was put in, there's a lot of soil disturbance. When the road was put in, there's a lot of soil disturbance. So that soil is really what we call highly modified. So the chance of us getting anything, like if we do start, we take off the invasives, and if we do start, treating it, like managing it for prairie, the chance of that soil, there being a seed bank in that soil that brings things back up is pretty small. McGaw Park never saw herbicide, never saw Roundup Ready agriculture. It did get taken over by invasives, but you take those invasives off, you start burning, and native stuff comes back. I don't think that's going to happen at this site. And the other thing, which we've talked about quite a bit, is it's dominated by black walnut, which you can get prairie and black walnut to exist in the same site, but it takes a lot of work. And it's not something that the city typically takes on because we don't have the resources to make that work very well. So I don't know if you guys, I don't know if you have those resources or not, but I think that's just, you really need to think that through, I think, before you decide, okay, great, we're gonna herbicide this whole area, open that up, and then, try to get prairie established there without really thinking that through and having the resources to pay someone, a contractor, Corcus or whomever, or Jensen or whomever it is, to really manage that, because it's not gonna be easy. And I mean, this site does not lend itself to what you're suggesting. And I'm not saying that to hurt your feelings or to be negative, it's just a fact.
But there are a lot of good other choices, I believe. There are a lot of other choices for good vegetation that would thrive in that kind of environment.
And I think we're going with those, or we planned it with those because of the initial design, and then Katie's design, and then Corcus's recommendation and Jensen's recommendation. So,
we are not landscape architects
right.
or arborists.
So we went to
so we started
professionals,
with
yeah.
a landscape architect, and he was supervised.
He matched the vegetation.
Yeah, and I said that from the very beginning. I said that, but it's fine.
But then we've had 3 other people, like Katie and these 2 Corcus and
But did
Jensen.
they recommend you put prairie here, or did you say what would we do with the site, and they said prairie?
That's what we said to the landscape architecture department. That's where we started.
Right.
Now.
So you prescribed prairie, and then they told you how to do it.
No,
That's a strong
they
word, yeah.
suggested Will Kegel, working under the supervision of his landscape architecture professor, suggested prairie. Now, they had other things that we did not accept. They wanted to put metal rails in and put colored gravel between the rails, and we can't afford that.
And
all those
it's city property anyway, so I would think it would have to be approved by city staff and administration. Sure. And whatever you work out for finances, I mean, that's not us. You have to work that out with.
Right. So we've toned down.
But this is our arborist and our naturalist, and this is who approves anything related to trees, and Anna is the one who knows what best matches that area.
So getting back to where we are, we've got a council approval to do the concept plan under the supervision with the approval of staff. Now, Anna is staff, and if Anna says,
well, Anna is
Scott
our expert for the city.
And Adam, I think it's a bad idea. They're gonna tell us it's a bad idea and we can't do it. So we need your approval, and therefore we have to have a good enough plan to get your approval. So if you want us to go back to the drawing board and look at other ecotypes around the path, then that's gonna be what we have to do.
All I'm saying is, like, if you want to put prairie in the site, it's going to be expensive, and if you want to pay for that, that's fine. That's just what I'm afraid of, and I've said this many, many times, is that if it doesn't work, it ends up being on me, and then I've got no resources. We have no staff and no budget for this project, so I have no resources to deal with it, and believe you me, I will get a lot of phone calls that aren't going to be very nice about how this doesn't look very good, and I'm going to be like, well, great.
Well, the worst case, as I see it, is that it's going to look good for a while, and then it's going to fall into disrepair and become overgrown like the McGaw Park course. And we don't want that, so we're trying to prevent that. But that would be one trajectory, and we are, if you could say, well, here's a different idea that would be no more expensive and probably easier to implement, we'd want to hear that. But learning over and over, or not learning over, hearing over and over again that is going to be hard and expensive doesn't help us.
I think people are trying to be polite, Steve.
Well,
can I ask a question?
Yes.
what would work well here?
Well, I mean, what I had said before is like if you wanted to do, so on that slope, and it's a pretty steep slope, so it's primarily dominated by black walnut. I think Katie, we have a picture of the trees.
Yeah, we're not planning to manage the slope.
This is the next concept.
So I guess even if I could be more specific, so looking at this, I mean, I'm considering myself biking down here. I was just down there a couple days ago. What would work, so this would be prairie currently in the current plan, the part that's along the trail, nothing, like not up here. What would work well, if you were to design something with a path around here, what would work well in this area?
You know,
like
if you wanted to do prairie there, you could try to do that.
What would work better on it? Because I'm hearing that you think something else would work better, so.
What I've said from the start, I'm like, I wonder if we should try trees and shrubs in this site, because that's kind of what's there. Like if we did black walnut compatible different trees and shrubs, like witch hazel would do really well. There's a few things we could choose from. I guess if you want to keep this open, because part of the problem is there's that hill, right? So I can understand wanting to keep it open. If you want to keep it open and almost, I mean, like if you want to try short grass prairie, that's fine. But realize, I mean, prairie's tall. I mean, prairie's taller than me. It's taller than any of us here. It's 6'6.5". Those prairie plants are 6'6.5" feet tall.
I have some in my backyard.
Exactly. So putting prairie there isn't necessarily going to open up sight lines. Unless you did shortgrass prairie, which I guess you could do.
Is that what it is, shortgrass prairie?
I think that's the plan.
Yeah. So that would maybe be a little bit more amenable to what you're looking to do. But I don't know. So I don't know how much space we've actually got there. Not a ton.
This is more like the line. If you.
Oh yeah. So.
Yeah.
Oh,
we showed that to Linda too.
Yeah. So at any rate, so what I had suggested before was to do trees and shrubs, because you're always talking about volunteers, right? Wanting to get volunteers involved, which is awesome. But as we all know, it's really, volunteers tend not to know prairie plants. And to say like, okay, great, volunteers, we're gonna weed the prairie, tends not to work awesome because they don't know what's a weed and what's a prairie plant. However, volunteers are very good at planting trees and shrubs. So, or tend to be, right? And then they can see what they've done. That's a really nice volunteer project. So what I had said is, hey, on that slope, if we put in more trees and shrubs to replace some of the honeysuckle, it's great, the honeysuckle's gone for the most part. That's not gonna open the site up, but that might hold that soil and, and create a little bit more of a park atmosphere and then give you a little bit of a block from the road, in theory. And in terms of between the path and the road, if you want to do shortgrass prairie, I think that's doable, but it would take budget, and so, and again, like the reason that I'm just a little bit nervous is because, I know that the city doesn't have money to put at this or staff. And so if it doesn't turn out well, it's all gonna, staff is gonna really hear about it and we're not gonna have the resources to do much and people are not gonna be nice. So I just guarantee you that. So that's my concern. So I just would hope that you take on the prairie restoration to what you have the budget to do, and kind of think about it from that perspective, because it'll take if that is, let's say it's shortgrass prairie, that'll take a solid 3.5, maybe 4 years to get established. So when there's a lot of maintenance between seeding, unless you do plugs, which I don't know if that's what you're thinking about doing, but between the seeding, the herbicide seeding / once it's established, that's a solid 4 years. At least, and there's a lot of maintenance in between there, and I just hope that everyone just understands what we're taking on. So that's what I'm trying to just.
You've been very clear.
And I think you have said that. Yeah, I haven't heard as clear the tree and the shrubs, but I've heard that you can do the shortgrass prairie, that can in that little area just to get the vision line going. I don't know if I've heard the trees and shrubs quite as clear as this time. But that part, the prairie, whatever, that we did here, and the maintenance and all that, but we're not expecting the city to do anything. And there are some people in the Friends group that, they don't have your expertise, but they're pretty qualified. So
we have a budget for the seeding that we're thinking of doing, but we don't have a budget for trees and shrubs. So these would be container trees. What kind of caliper would?
You could do small ones. Like, for example, if
I don't want to do acorns.
Right. No, if you did smaller caliper trees in there, you'd be paying. So they cost like about $95 to $120 a piece.
What type of trees?
So I haven't thought it through completely because I haven't had a ton of time to spend on this, but witch hazel would work well with the black walnut. I did, for everyone's reference, I did include the UW black walnut compatible trees and shrubs in the packet, just so people know, you know, because the thing is, like, there has been black walnut on this site probably since the soil settled, right? So squirrel planted, I think probably the original tree is the big, there's a big black walnut here on, is it the southeast side? It's this tree right here.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big black walnut tree that squirrels probably took nuts from that tree and planted it throughout the site, as throughout the whole greenway, right? Like the dominant canopy tree in this greenway is black walnut. So that's probably been like that since the dust settled from putting in that MMSD infrastructure, which has probably been, what, I don't know, 50, 60 years, something like that. So it's been there for a while. And so there's a lot of juglone in that soil. And so at any rate, so that's why I put this in here. If you're gonna do, you know, trees that are tolerant of juglone or sensitive to juglone, I mean, this is the kind of list that you would kind of think about and pick different things that, I mean, we're not gonna put arborvitae in there. We're not gonna put, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's on this list that we wouldn't put in there. But
are you on the plan list? Is that what you're on, or what?
So this is the, so I added this into the,
gotcha.
yeah.
Okay.
So which and to be honest, like, all respect to Will, I don't think he knew that there were black walnuts on this site, and I don't think that he understood what was possible with given those conditions.
So nobody was
In the construction part that you're meaning of the turning and
right,
destroying and damaging the soil, it makes it so much harder. We've had so many terrace trees that we plant and then they die because they're not really in soil. They're in
How would you
a
compare
bunch of
this?
rocks and dirt thrown together, you know, and not really, and along the salt, you know.
Yeah, it's like Steve said, you know, we're not the landscape architects, but we
Well-
did trust the professor, and then we did
Well, and the
trust
city
Quercus.
staff knows what's on that land. I mean, people you're hiring privately don't know.
Well, they're out
the
on,
city
we're
staff.
on site. I mean, we're looking
They know
at
the
the trees.
history of what's under it and.
How would you compare this small site to that more extensive site along the Cannonball Trail that became the Harlan Hills Prairie?
That's a good comparison, actually. So that's actually a good comparison, because that's a prairie reconstruction. That is not native soil either. That was a rat breeding facility. Before that was.
It was a what?
It was a rat breeding
Oh, yeah.
facility. So
Yeah.
that was parking lots and buildings and everything. So this, you bring up an excellent point. So that soil is totally mixed up and not good. Was not a good. That was not a great state for prairie restoration. I think the reason it's there is because of an agreement with the Arboretum, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but but we're using that as a precedent.
Yes. So I'll tell you.
So what do we have to do to make it like that?
Well, I'll tell you what made that prairie what it is the Harlan Hills Biodiversity Committee. And those ladies, the Harlan Hills Biodiversity Committee, and they worked out there for years, 3 days a week, and they were weedy. So back in like 2016 or whatever, it was super weedy, and there was a thought like, hey, should we just herbicide this out and start over? They didn't really want to do that, which I totally understand. So they were working their tails off weeding, but they were spending most of their time bagging weeds and dragging it to the maintenance facility. And I said, okay, if you ladies are willing to weed, let's target this, this, and this. Just pull it out, put it on the path. I will come with my truck and pick it up. So for years, every 3 times a week, I would come there with my truck, and we took truckloads and truckloads and truckloads of weeds out of that Harlan Hills Prairie. And they were just diligent and dedicated, exceedingly impressive. And then our park commission chair grew plants. She collected seed, grew plants, and then I got those plants from her. I brought those plants over. They planted all those plants. So it was like this big, so yeah, it's a kind of an amazing project, because now there's Rusty Patch Bumblebee there, which I never would have guessed. So exactly, I never would have guessed that. But at any rate, and now we can actually burn it, which is awesome, because now there's enough fuel that it burns pretty well. We can do pretty decent weed control. But that's how it got that way, was that those ladies in the Harlan Hills Biodiversity Committee dedicating 3 to 4 days a week, just almost every day, organizing these volunteers, doing all of that weed removal, me coming and picking it all up, getting rid of it, and then Sue collecting seeds, growing plants, and then me bringing the plants, and then them planting plants. So that's it.
Some of the ideas we had, first of all, we don't have the idea of you picking up the weeds.
Yeah.
But we are dealing with a much smaller area.
Right.
And therefore, it could be that our friends group could do that and get it, maintain the weed level, manage the weeds, and get that going.
Now, that other comparison site, though, is that black walnut dominated? No, so it's a different
So
situation.
how much does that impact prairie plants?
Well, so a lot of them just won't. So we have this problem at our parks, and you have to just be careful what you put under there. And we actually have taken, like in Wildwood South, we took some walnut out of a prairie, and they were doing crummy, and they were all wind damaged and all crummy. So we took them out. We do have one though on the edge of that prairie we're very careful about what we plant. It's probably the size of this table is the area that's impacted, but we're very careful about what we put under there. So it's it's an interesting situation, and because what's happened is like if you look at and I don't mean to get too in the weeds here, but if you look at the severe pictures of Fitchburg, it was super dry and it burned a lot. There was no black walnut, right? Well, now it doesn't burn. It's much wetter because we've changed all the hydrology, and black walnut thrives, and squirrels love to plant them, right? So we have black walnut all over the place. Kind of grows as a weed. So it kind of has changed. It's kind of changed the plants that we end up planting.
Do you want that?
Well, well, it depends on the site, right? Like not in the middle of a prairie. So, we'll take them out if they're in the middle of a prairie. If a squirrel's planted a bunch of black walnut in the prairie, we'll take them out. But on a site like this, it's like, well, what's the alternative, So that's
kind of what we're asking.
yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I mean, I think, keeping the prairie bounded by the path is actually kind of a nice idea, but it's not for me to say, so.
Well,
I
think that we need prairie on both sides of the path to a certain extent, because I don't think that, so where there's no prairie, we're not going to manage it. Okay, we're not taking on this whole site. We're trying to do the Kyle Steger Greenway on the flat place in the bottom of there. So when we cleaned that out, be it the time that it was forestry mowed by Parks Maintenance, or whether it was the time that we hired the goats, or whether it's future when we use herbicides or whatever method we use. We did not plan to do the slope. The goats did the slope, but that's not part of our plan. Now, that's why we said, okay, you'd like to leave those black walnuts. We're okay with that because we're not really planning on managing that slope. We looked at bringing water down, $40,000.
Yeah.
We looked at having some kind of ADA or non-ADA path between the sidewalk and the site. Those things are too expensive, so we're not going to deal with that. With the advice of this good group, which has been working on these matters, what do you as staff want us to do, and what will you advise Scott and Adam to tell us to do? And we will try to do it. But
and I just want to say a little bit in our defense, because I feel a little attacked, like we're just doing this willy-nilly, but I feel like we've really been trying to consult the experts. It wasn't until like you came out that last time, we looked at all the trees, and it's like, I just went to Steve and it's like, I can't believe she hasn't been looped in on all of this.
Yeah.
So now we're looping her in on everything. But it's like, I'm learning too. It's like where this all, it's like a nice idea. We went with Parks and Rec, we go to the city council, we're going with, and not throwing anybody under the bus. I just think it's just, we just didn't quite understand, all who needed to be in the loop. But that became loud and clear to us that day. And we said our apologies, and also now I think we're here saying,
we had the Dane County Parks Plan out there.
It's like, so every time I feel like I learn something new, and it's like I didn't even know there was a tree advisory committee. I mean, it's like, it's kind of the stuff that, you learn as you get into all of this as well. I'm not gonna put you on, I just think we're doing really the best we can, and we're not trying to do anything like that'll be awful for the public here, to get you complaints. We don't, if anything, what I'm hearing, like that day you were out there, Anna, like those 3 women go by and they can't wait for it to be done. The man goes by, he can't wait for it to be done. Our neighbors are like, we can't wait for this to be done. I'm hearing nothing but positive about it. So, but that doesn't mean you're not getting the nasty phone calls, and we don't want that to happen either.
Well,
I don't want any of that to happen.
Yeah.
So again, our apologies for not even knowing all the channels to bring forth before it's even approved. So, but now we are here, and it is a little bit, if you think some low grass prairie would be great, good. If there's something else, more trees, more shrubs, you know. And that's one reason why we don't want the culvers, because it's like, yes, it saves money, but it's also less disturbance, less the colored gravel. It's like, you know, all that. Like we're trying to go back on that too. We want it to be environmentally sound. Kyle would want it to be environmentally sound. You know, all of that. So it's really, our hearts are so in the right place. I just want you to know that.
We didn't
But
want
we're not trying to offend. Yeah, we even said that.
We didn't want to
Herbicide,
herbicide,
sure.
and the two vendors kept saying, that's the way to do it. It's much easier
And they were
safer.
like just on the roots, they're not gonna like spray the whole thing. It's just like just on the roots of those plants.
But
like,
you do
okay.
have choice. I mean, there are options, and I mean,
As long as we know what those are, you know.
right,
Yeah.
right. And you know, there's conventional ways to do things. There's the way a landscaper would do things. There's the managers or the arboretum would do things, or the way the city would do things. So.
Right, and we just contacted two companies that were recommended to us by the city. I mean, we went to the parks. Who should we ask? So then we do that, and they're saying, yeah, and we even said herbicide. Are you sure? And they're like, but just right on the roots. We're not, you know. So it's like that's sort of like okay.
And glyphosate, which is the herbicide that would get used, it sticks to the soil, so it would not run off. So I think the runoff, I can appreciate the concern, but I think it would, because glyphosate binds to soil, so by design, so it wouldn't, if the soil erodes, then it moves with the soil, but it doesn't run off itself. It's not water soluble. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. So that's why it's recommended for us, for this kind of.
What type of herbicide is it?
Glyphosate, which is, the trade name is Roundup.
Okay.
So I'm not quite following. So you're like saying what Purpose was wanting to do, like
That's how you do it.
Okay.
And like I said, I can appreciate the runoff concerns, and I'm not saying that's not valid, but glyphosate, which is sold as Roundup, which is a broadleaf, it's a general, it kills everything.
Yeah.
It sticks, by design, it binds to soil. So once you put it on that site.
Plants.
Yeah, it kills the plants and sticks to the soil. So once it binds that soil, it's not gonna move. It's not water soluble. It can't, if it rains or whatever, it isn't gonna move, it's not gonna leach. When
So you're okay with their thinking on that?
Oh, yeah, that is how you do it, but the only way it would like get into the water is if the soil got into the water, which is the whole job.
Is that true if you're doing restorations?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it's done.
Is that true if you had other kinds of vegetation there?
Well, so, I don't see the issue. I can understand the sightline concern here. I don't know, I guess I don't know what I would do with this site, to be honest. I mean, because you've got that infrastructure coming through that you have to be mindful of. There's that slope. I don't know. I mean, I think I kind of like this. I thought Katie did an awesome job of putting the short grass prairie right along the path, which is fine, and kind of hemmed in by I guess it's going to be grass, turf, which is fine, and then that kind of puts a border on things, and then there's some limits. I don't know. I don't know. I like the idea of just having the prairie by the path, but okay.
So I have these, in the packet, there's these concept
Yeah.
drawings, which I assume are old, because
this is the updated.
it includes like the stairway and
Right.
stuff like that. But in this packet, you have the bike path, you still have like this with the main kind of circle site with the memorial. And then behind that, there are like trees and shrubs.
Yeah.
In that original, I mean, this picture looks beautiful.
Yeah.
And so like I guess I'm wondering, what is it's page 14.
There we go.
14 in the packet.
Yeah.
Is it?
14 packet page. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
That was the original.
unlimited budget plan.
Sure, but
And a
from
lot of disruption.
right, but from like taking this picture and looking at it, on this plan, it's still pretty similar. I mean, you have the path, you have the memorial site, and then you have what's coming behind. You just don't have that kind of second path that's at the very front of the picture.
Yeah.
But like, if you built this as prairie in the front where it is now, and like that little you'd have that big black walnut tree, like the one that's like 3 trunks there, and you built this kind of, so along whatever the line you drew there was like
that's the base of the berm.
tree, because then you have kind of I am not a landscape architect either, so I'm just shooting my mouth off here. But like, cause then you kind of have a barrier and a transition between where you're not going to maintain it anymore. If you have like some trees and shrubs there,
Right.
that part that's gonna go up the slope and get all weedy and unmaintained is gonna have a little bit of, there's gonna be like some sort of barrier in front of that. So I don't know, I'm throwing that out there, cause I mean, I don't know anything about this, but.
What I'm thinking is that if we don't go up on that slope and cut it back every couple years, that we're gonna get more honeysuckle.
Yeah, you will.
And that will be a visual barrier, like Patrick Lakes over at McGaw Park. But, you know, we weren't planning to go up that slope. So I'm
But you're planning on these white pieces, are those like stones for a path?
those white pieces are just little
Elevation.
halos around the contour line labels. They're just artifacts of they are not really there. They're like the first down markers on a football field. They're not really there.
So, and I think, you know, while, you know, since we are here, and Anna, we do have your expertise here, so I'm hearing, like, yes, on some of the low prairie, and maybe am I also hearing, like, integrate some more bushes and trees in
I
that?
think that would be awesome, but you know, it's, you know, but I again don't really know what the budget is, and we don't really, you know, I don't see, and I just hesitate to say too much because I know I can't do it. You know, I mean, we just don't have the ability to do a whole lot here.
Yeah, you won't need to do it.
Yeah.
So we're wondering if, so you can see on, I don't like calling it tree removal plan, I would call it tree preservation plan. But if you go to that page, which is not changed from
And thank you for putting the trees
this one,
on the
yeah.
plan,
Yeah,
because
that
that was the other thing we discussed.
Sure.
And we spent 3.5 years, you know, getting some things passed, which requires trees being put on.
Yeah, it
any
sounds like
kind
we all
of-
have like a 3-year history here, and it's like, it's good to come together to see where it can align.
So these trees have now been mapped, and we have a very clear plan as to which ones we're taking out. The ones we're taking out are either box elder or dead.
Yeah, some of those are dead.
I think that's the two categories. And so that's what we'd like to remove. And you can see not all the trees are mapped. We stopped mapping them when we got to the berm. But all the black walnuts are not shown on this diagram.
That was my other question.
Between the sidewalk and the row of red X's. There are some black walnuts to the upper right of those X's, and I think that the reason that those are there is because, I think it was you, Anna, but it might have been one of our consultants that told us that those are all one tree, and that from underground runners, and that we should just take out that entire family of box elder.
it's popple. So there's box elder there. So I think the trees are marked for removal. There's some box elders that were damaged by the goats. There's some mulberries that were the same, and then there's the popple trees. And I just said, you know, you can take or leave the popple, but it is one clone.
Yep.
So, you know, and depending on what happens there, I was like, well, take it or leave it. Depends on what the management is. Yeah.
So my question for staff to approve, and with your advice to staff, is can we request Joran take out those red trees now so we can proceed? Because we expect Quercus to come in when? June.
I think it is really June. It might be, because of rain, some of the other stuff they were gonna do is on back hold, so they were gonna maybe come in.
Accelerate our project.
Yes. So I think we're just kind of on their timeline. It's not like it's like a wait and see, but it's probably gonna be earlier is what they said.
I'm really confused about what it is that council actually approved. Did they approve?
They approved the concept plan.
But did they approve the city staff doing all the work for any
No.
tree removal?
No, they
And
approved,
what-
they approved the city could do work, because we talked about some of the things that
So you-
park maintenance could do, but it will be up to Adam and Scott and Joran whether they have those resources or whether we need to contract out.
So what are you asking on it? I mean, our city laws, statutes say that our city forester is the one who makes decisions about trees staying or leaving. That's my understanding of the way the law reads. It's, what is it, Article 35?
It's
something.
54. Chapter
54, okay, yeah.
Okay.
So which is what you're asking.
And this
just
is
as a
city
member,
property, so
it is
it's gonna
city
be up,
property.
it's gonna be up to her.
So I would think that any trees that are going to be removed would need to be approved by our city forester.
Yeah.
She
That's what
drew the X's on these trees.
That is what.
You're telling me two things. You said nobody tells you, has given you recommendations, and now you're saying she has, which, yeah, I know she has.
She has marked these trees for removal, then we went back, we discussed leaving the black walnuts, and so the city staff, park maintenance staff, has agreed that they have the resources to come in and remove these trees. But we need,
Jordan's kind of waiting for the.
Jordan
it's
is
the wait and
waiting
see, yeah.
for
And
Adam to
he's
tell him
super
to do
busy
it.
right now. I mean, he is super busy right now. I have given him so many work orders, I feel a little bit bad about it, but yeah.
And I appreciate you doing the tree in my front yard too.
Yes, yes, of course. And you'll get a new one here. Anyway, we got a little delayed on that, but yes, so you're welcome. But at any rate, so long story longer, like, so the ones that are marked, I don't really have any issue with those coming down. I really don't. I guess, they're not,
Let me, can I just give an example, like, for me, so I grew up, no, I didn't, I did grow up, but my job with the school district was making sure that the law was applied equally to all the kids and families, and so was yours when we worked in the school. That was part of our job. So, like, I know a neighbor of ours whose tree went down in a storm, and the city was this is a personal story, this isn't an honest story or anything else, she never said this to her. The city had so much, Doran had so much on his docket that she eventually just paid for it. So, I mean, that's what happens if a private owner has something,
right,
on their, it was bordered the property, it was on the path. It bordered the path behind her property, so it was technically on the city's land. So then she did donate the money to the city to, get it.
To have a private contractor come in because
Yes.
Jordan couldn't do it.
That's
Yes.
correct, that's
So
correct.
I just had
Right.
EcoTree come out and trim up all the mature oaks at the top of the Burnwood Hill on county land at my expense. And I had to get a county permit for that. I'm very familiar with that process.
But you were saying something on it though before.
So I was just gonna say, like, in terms of, like, the trees that are marked here that Katie did, and Katie did a great job. I really appreciate Katie getting out there, getting the trees, and she's a lovely lady. I think she did an awesome job. And I had talked to her ahead of time. I said, if you don't mind just making sure that the trees with X's on them end up on the site plan, whatever. And she did that, which is awesome. So I really appreciate that.
And we said to her, please communicate with
And
you.
she did, and she did, and she's awesome. So I think that's, so I just want to say thank you for that. And so for the trees that are marked here to come down, I don't necessarily have, like, it's fine. I'm not really, because these box elders have been, like I said, damaged by goats. They're not really adding to the site. They're not really, they're not old trees. I bet those box elders are 10, 15 years old, maybe on the high end. I know Rich likes to use them for tree forts, but these aren't even good for tree forts. So at any rate, because they're all, kind of like growing, because it's a shaded site, so they're growing toward the light. They're all kind of, they don't have awesome structure. I don't know that we would want them there if we have all these people coming in anyway. So I don't really have a problem, like, removing the box elder trees. The mulberry tree was all, it's going to drop a ton of fruit, which isn't great for the site either, but it was all, the goats had kind of girdled it, and it was all kind of, fallen half over, and I was just like, goats had probably had a party up there. So anyway, so that going is not a big deal. And then I think so I'm not 100% sure about the popples. I think we could probably leave them, but that's almost, they're small, they're not really, they don't contribute a ton to the site, but it is, I kind of like them, but anyway, so I don't think those are any of the trees that are marked here. So generally speaking, if it's okay with Jordan's boss, who is the DPW, not me, to go in there and take them down. I don't really have a big issue with that. I've already marked them with the 2 ribbons to indicate like, hey, these should go down, and I already put the work order in, so we should be fine. And I totally appreciate the concern about, you know, staff time and, you know, and all of that kind of stuff. But I think in this case, I think that this is fine. I guess I just want to make sure we're not biting off more than we can chew from a Prairie perspective. That's fine.
So if he can't do it in the time frame that they would like to start modifying the site, can they go ahead and do it?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that's not a question I can answer.
If you're good with it, we're gonna tell Joran that this is the sheet, and if your duties permit, could you take out these trees, and if your duties won't permit, say by July 1 or something, tell us so that we know that we have to seek alternatives.
Yeah.
And then, well, too, I wanted to just come back to your comments about the walnut trees, and I just didn't understand it. So just for my learning as well, but there's something about the way things have shifted, and there's more walnuts and squirrel. It sounded like maybe it was a negative thing. Are you wanting the walnuts to stay? Or are you wanting?
Well,
I mean, because now would be the time. Is there something that would be helpful as far as the squirrels and the walnuts and the spreading of things? Is there something that would be helpful with this site that spreads to other sites or whatever?
So when the original prairie extent was the whole site, we would have had to take out all the walnuts. There was kind of no way to do both things. So, but it sounds like the prairie is much reduced. So I think, so that makes it that.
So you'd rather they were there. They're not like an invasive thing to you too?
No, they're not. You know,
They have good canopy too. I think was one of our concerns when we heard how many trees initially you were gonna take. It's like, wait a minute, we're trying to go canopy. Why are we taking down 30 trees that are a decent size, you know?
And they're happy
Okay,
there.
so that other piece that you said, something about walnuts and squirrels, that that sounded negative. I just want to make sure.
Well, I think, so basically, so my concern was if the prairie extent is the whole entire site, we're going to take out all the walnut trees, and then squirrels are going to bring them back. So you're going to be battling squirrels planting walnuts in this site probably forever. And then maybe that's too open. Like, I understand the open sight lines and that sort of thing, but maybe like clearing the whole site, that might be a little bit more than we want. And the reason I like the black walnut trees there is because they're doing great.
Okay.
You know, I mean, like, they're growing. If you look at how they're growing, they are growing really fast. So they're super happy there, which is awesome. And it's kind of a challenging site. So it's like, well, we've got these trees here that are doing great. Maybe we should just leave them and then manage the rest of the site around some of those trees. And to Micah's point, like, I think this is beautiful. The if I can find page 14, like, you wouldn't think it's that hard to count to 14, but apparently it's a challenge for me. Anyway, so, and if you look at, only on 12, here we go. If you look at this, I think that's really lovely, you know? And so you see, when you look up, when people come there to sit on benches and things, there is some shade, there's a lot of relief.
We don't expect that big a crowd ever.
I know, I was thinking
You never know when there's benches in there, though. I don't know.
You will. I think you will get a lot of people. I think a lot of people will get in there. I really do. I think it will be very
We want a
used.
rest spot. They've been telling me we want a rest spot. We've been walking and walking. We want a rest spot.
I think there will be a lot of people in there.
This 3-trunk one is beautiful. Like, this is a really cool tree. Like, the canopy of it is awesome, like when I was out there.
Yes.
And it's gonna provide like some canopy over like this area.
That's the cottonwood, right?
It is, Right, so I think it's great to keep that. Like, generally speaking, if you were gonna
that would never.
Yeah, so if the prairie extent was all the way up here, you'd have to really work around that tree, which you could do. It's just that it's just a lot of work.
Yeah, that tree is on the other side of the berm from where we want to be.
Yeah. So I think, long story longer, thank you for coming. I really think that we're kind of working toward the same end. I think there will be a lot of people here, which is why I'm a little bit nervous, to be honest, because I'm like, I think they'll, like, seriously, I'm not kidding.
We're gonna sign them all up to help us, so.
Well, right, I mean, I think it will be very heavily used. I think there will be people there year-round all the time. I really do, which is great from one perspective, but then I'm like, oh, wow, we have to really make sure that this looks awesome. So I think as long as we're all committed to that, I think we can kind of move it forward.
And I think that we want you to know that we're taking this on, and we're on a budget, and we're not, the city has expertise and they have the equipment on site, and they can get in and get out of there with some of these jobs really quickly, like they with the original forestry mowing. But we are not signing you up for a annuity of hard labor to keep this site going.
Nor do we want you to get negative phone calls.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Not at all.
Which is kind of funny because as it is now, nobody's complaining. It does not look good.
I know, right?
It's
All
like
that
nobody's
invasive
calling,
junk and
but if
everything.
you attempt to do something and it's not perfect, then you might get a
And
call.
can I also just tell you, so, I mean, many years ago, this will be 1 minute, my stepdad passed away tragically as well. My mom went through this exact process. She
Really?
did a foundation, built thing. We ended up building a ski lodge thing in Bozeman, Montana, way over there. It took forever. It was an incredibly long, arduous process, and it ended up being wonderful. So, just, I understand. Yeah, so.
Yeah, so I wanted to share that.
Talking Dawn off the ledge.
Yeah.
Say, we can get this done, but I know it's gonna take time.
Yeah, and I wanted to say that as well. Like when we got that policy through that, it took 3.5 years and I couldn't understand why it should take so long. And Scott Endel said to me, these things take time.
Yeah.
I just want you to know it's not gonna happen. So, I mean, I think, you're melding, private money, private funding on a city property, and I don't even know if there's any like real policy written for that.
Well, that's part
So
of it,
it's
and
new.
Adam was very clear. We're the first ones,
Right.
they really want
Right.
ducks in a row, the lawyer, and then we're like, okay, we get that, so, yeah.
So I
Right?
have no
mean,
doubt
yeah.
that what you have in mind and the reasons for it are incredibly wonderful and appreciated
And
by
it's-
us and everybody else.
And it's to beautify and make it better, not to
Yes.
cause any hardship, but that's what we don't want.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I
So,
think,
thank you for your persistence.
and I think it will be an amenity people will definitely use. So thank you for coming.
So-
I'm glad we talked it through.
Me too.
We
Me
okay
too.
with the red X's then?
No, I'm fine with it. Yeah, I'm fine with it. And I told Katie that. I said, this is great. And she's like, okay, great, I'll tell Jordan. I'm like, well, why don't you maybe hold the phone for a second. so anyway, what I will do tomorrow is I'll pass on the comments from this meeting, and Jordan had some comments too to Katie, and then I'll just say like, hey, if you guys have time. And I am feeling a little bit sheepish because I put a lot of pressure on Public Works this spring to take trees down because we had an incredible amount of ash trees that were infested that we had to get down. So I will just be very gentle and say like, thank you for everything that you do, and if you happen to have time, their trees are marked. If you don't have time, please let us know. So I just need to be very nice because they really, really have worked exceedingly hard to do forestry work this last short term, and I greatly appreciate it, and they are overworked and understaffed in a huge way, and they really do a great job, so, as we all know, so.
Yes, they do.
Yes.
And then if they are able to, are you able to let us know when they're out there, because
Yeah, we can do that.
to make it
She'll
better for them.
bring them cookies.
Beverages.
All right, we thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I'm really glad that this meeting worked out,
Me
and I'm
too.
super grateful that Katie got the site plan to us, because I was like, hey, Katie, I have to get this in the packet. And she's like, okay, by the end of the day. And then I was like, and I didn't want to put pressure on her, but the next day I called her, I was like, Katie,
You know, she's doing it all pro bono, so I haven't wanted to pressure
I
her
know.
either, and I know people are waiting, and I just am so
know.
grateful that she's doing that.
I know. So I was like, hey,
Yeah.
lovely job. Is it possible to get it in the packet? So anyway,
Right.
anyway,
Thank you, everybody.
yes, thank you for coming.
Bye-bye.
Bye, bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. And sorry about your stepdad?
Yeah, yes, I mean, it's 20 years ago.
I know,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
still,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
probably still hard.
So, thank
Yeah,
you.
all right.
Yes, take care. Bye-bye. Okay, moving on. All right. Thank you, everyone, for a lively discussion.
Okay.
All right, next on our agenda, Urban Forestry Strategic Management Plan Schedule. Yay.
I think you're on mute, Rich. Can you hear? Awesome.
I had my cat Sunny that was meowing, so I put myself on mute. I didn't think you wanted a cat to be heard. I spoke with Anna earlier, and she was glad to have me chat because she said she gets to chat with you all the time, so it's nice for a different voice. I have to give my compliments to a wonderful discourse I just heard over about the last hour. That was exciting. No, I'm serious.
Are you serious?
Back to my professor, I am.
Good.
You guys were awesome. in my professor role, retired from, I'd always take classes to some sort of community event. We were doing management plans for small communities, and I always wanted to see them see governance in process, and that's actually what I saw unfold here. That it was, my compliments. I'm sincere on that. It's actually a hard act to follow. So,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah, it is because you're first of all, it's certainly a very passionate item of dedicating a site to to a dear person for family.
Yeah.
Along with helping out with the bike community for a much needed place to, if you need bike repairs, plus a green space for people to rest at. But then obviously the process of, looking at environmental stewardship and right place plans for a situation and thinking long-term maintenance and all those great things that, my compliments serious for everything you just actually did over the last hour. My role here today is to say hi, and it's our privilege actually to be part of City of Fitchburg, and my role playing with EOC Environmental Group, and been with them for almost 3 years now. Was a professor at UWSP and still connected there. It's just had this opportunity to retire from there and practice what I used to preach, I like to say. And so today, I would have to say, I'm gonna, Anna has in the packet here this proposed schedule. I imagine you had a chance to take a look at it, and in reality, it lays the groundwork over the next half a year or so, and more so of this May through September time period. Really thinking about the role that the Tree Advisory Committee can play with this. And the first thing that comes to mind for me is really we've got a lot of things that you can help with, and there's no commitment on your part. And so anything I mentioned here today, it's if you have the opportunity, the time, and the insight to provide guidance as this process unfolds for a strategic urban forest plan, awesome. One thing that comes to mind is certainly we're going to have a community engagement approach. One of it is I was really impressed when we looked at the RFP response that you had a past survey from 2015, and I'm one that does survey design. And actually, Anna, thank you for submitting your response for municipal tree activity study. That's something actually outside of my role with EOC directly. It's a large national effort. And so survey design in that is something that I'm really passionate about. So we have this 2015 thing that there's some questions that we're going to pull in because it it allows us to actually make some comparisons to see how things change, but also kind of from a survey design perspective, it's useful to see if we're getting answers that make sense, that we've got a sample design that worked. And so something like the survey before we go live with it, I'd love for you all to take a look at it, and I'd say beta test it. So that's an opportunity to be involved in the process here to make sure that questions that we're actually asking make sense for the city of Fitchburg. Okay. The other thing is parts of like the community engagement plan, and I'll be sending those in the near future to Anna that she can share with you. We've got community events, for example, and we haven't officially figured out which ones make the most sense. And so let's say whatever community event that we go to, or community events, we'd play the game of asking the community to give insights to their likes and dislikes. Getting back to the questionnaire, that in itself would have a similar response that we're trying to list for people, because certainly people love trees, but there's also things that people dislike about trees. And this is kind of interesting, and it probably doesn't surprise you. One of the dislikes people have is they drop leaves. Okay, does that surprise you?
No.
Yeah, it's really maintenance is what it comes down to. It's not that they don't like, they love people. We love leaves, how they flutter in the wind and things like that. But yeah, the maintenance part really comes down to because our time is precious. So getting some insight again on the survey of like the likes, dislikes, but also the same thing with our community events to really get a sense. So when we're creating a strategic plan and we're coming up with goals and objectives, that at the end of the day it fits what the community really wants out of their community tree population. And then the fourth item is certainly an important role, is reviewing the plan that we develop. And so it's already we've got in process of early October, the second for the Parks Commission and the 9th of October, as you can read here, presenting to the Tree Advisory Committee. And so, but in advance of that, actually getting some insight of here's our draft plan. And, you know, from my perspective, and Anna, help me if I'm incorrect on dates here, but sometime by mid-September at the latest from our perspective is we need to have things in hand so people get some, you know, appropriate amount of time to take a look at something, review it, and provide any guidance.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's my short and sweet message here today. I'm glad I had an opportunity to, number one, meet with you. And again, sincerely, that past hour, I've done this enough. I've been involved with the tree stuff for over 40 years now. Kind of the reason I did it, the discourse I heard earlier is awesome. And so I'll just turn it over. Anything that, you know, it's almost 5:20 in today. Anything for me that would be useful as we're just starting this whole process here.
So one question that was asked of me today, Rich, is when will we know when we're doing the public outreach? Like, will we have those dates in the next couple weeks, or what you know, exactly how we're going to target public outreach? Is that something that we can kind of start getting organized on, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, that has to happen soon, and within the next couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks is a goal from my perspective, because well, I guess I asked before, and I can't remember. I'd have to look at the notes from when last time we chatted. I think it was out in Boise at the time, of any community events, and I don't know if it was clear of ones that might make sense.
Okay.
And so maybe after the meeting here, or maybe, you know, brainstorming here right now, if you have any events like this one might make sense to target.
Okay.
But getting back to the question, yes, within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we need to have some dates.
Okay.
At least a pretty good idea of, so we can plan ahead of time. Because September comes pretty fast.
It does. It will.
Getting things out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because if you get those to me, I can announce them at council.
Right.
And make sure that
yeah,
all of them, and I know that I would like to make sure that they get out to people that are interested in one specific park.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
just so that we make sure that we are. I just want to make sure that we are, you know, communicating appropriately.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I know, just to put a little aside on it, you know, we just went through strategic planning process here in the city, and I think those events were, they were out weeks and weeks ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we just need to make sure we give people a really good lead time and
promote. Yeah.
So anyway, all right, fair enough. And then
I think you bring up an important part there. 2 different types. One is just it's a formal, where this is the only event. It's let's talk about trees in Fitchburg, where it's a planned meeting. The other part is I'm just thinking about like festivals.
Yeah.
So I think that the earlier part of planning a date for here's the time we have for us, myself and Casty, for example, to lead a session with people, and then certainly figuring out agenda and time frame. That's one approach that we planned on, but also any community events where you could have a booth, and then just another informal way to interact with people.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
We used to do this thing every October at McKee Farms.
Yeah, concerts on McKee is pretty well attended.
Yeah. That would be. I would think that would be a good venue.
Yeah.
The people are going to be there. I was going to say farmers market too, which is every Thursday. Right during this meeting.
Okay.
You know, a little before, a little after too. But yeah, I was gonna say farmers market would be, I think, ideal. Also, I don't know, the art fair might be too late. Isn't that in September?
That's August.
It's August. Okay, that might be too late. But the concerts in McKee, I think, would be great. And I mean, there's lots of different things that are happening too. So I think Kids Building Wisconsin. I don't know. Probably not.
That's very soon, right?
That's
this weekend.
What was the one you said before that? Before Kids Building Wisconsin?
The art fair, the Agora.
After the art fair.
Yeah, the Agora Art Fair, which happens not far here from City Hall. So there should be lots of options, and and I think you know, the sooner we can get that together, I think the more successful we're gonna end up being.
Right, and any day of the week better than another one for a standalone event, or any time.
Standalone.
Or maybe we have a couple standalone events just to make people schedule, different demographics, different age groups, things like that.
We have a lot of stuff on Thursdays for what reason, I don't know.
And Tuesdays are busy.
And Tuesdays, yeah, we have councils on Tuesday.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, today is tree advisory, then it's also transportation transit, it's also park commission, depending on the day of the week.
Or Wednesdays.
I think Wednesdays would be a good option.
Yeah, Wednesdays are lighter for other city stuff
Sometimes
anyway.
Sunday nights if you want families, but
Yeah, I think Wednesdays are probably a little bit of a better option, because it seems like Tuesday, Thursday is the nights when most meetings happen.
At least to get us there,
All right, awesome.
Is there any event in the low-income communities that would
Good
outreach to them?
Good question. I don't know.
I know the library used to have a summer program, but I think they haven't since before the pandemic. That would have been ideal, but I don't know.
I could mention it to Ari, my offspring, who
She
is
would know.
chair of the Healthy Neighborhoods Committee.
Perfect.
That
She
would
would
be
know.
great.
That would be awesome.
I
Ari
could
would
ask,
know.
I could ask Joe and Dave too. For District 1.
That would be
Yeah,
great.
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be really good.
How many districts are there?
4.
How many what?
Okay.
Districts 4.
I know when the library was working in the communities, they would dovetail with the schools sometimes, but she would know that.
Yeah, schools.
Yep.
Yeah.
That would be
With
awesome.
special events with schools like Leopold.
Yeah,
that would be
Ari
really
knows
nice.
all about those
Right.
events.
That would be awesome. If we could kind of
Yeah.
dovetail with her, that would be awesome.
And there's community gardens. We have community gardens, but I don't know if they have any kind of central organization or not. But that would be.
That would be, they
Not
have
that I'm aware
leaders.
of.
Yeah, that might be good. I can ask Scott, because he kind of manages those leaders.
Yeah, and do they? Yeah, we could. It'd be worth it sending mailings out to them or contacting them. I would think that group would be very interested. Community garden group.
You would hope.
Yeah, I would think so. That's another thing, to think about. Yeah, what groups do we think really dovetail well with this and might help bring in others?
So,
other
Rich,
input?
do you want us to send you a list, or what's the best?
Yeah. If you had one for, because I think those are easier. They're set in stone. It's really, I think, getting the date ahead of time for standalone or a couple standalone events where we target to have people come and play, pin the tail on the tree canopy. I like to call it, where it's like you give dots or whatever type of focus group event or approach you use, where you've got 3 red dots for the things you dislike and 3 green dots for the things you like, and then kind of leading a discussion that way.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. So I think we'll get our ducks in a row a little bit, and we'll send you a list of possible events and dates and that kind of thing. And okay, and that I think is probably the better way to do it.
And what I liked about a lot of these things is it's potentially whether, let's say we're at the Agora Art Fair or not, having, if I pronounced that correctly, is having, for example, a questionnaire is having a QR code where a person can actually do it electronically. And I'm a firm believer of mixed modes. So, having paper, because sometimes that's such an easier, low barrier way for people to respond, have to enter data, but so be it. But on the flip side, electronic means the questionnaire that we have actually, again, we'll run questions by you. It's not a labor intensive, not like the survey you did for me, Anna, that can take a day or so probably.
Yeah, it can.
Yeah, this national survey, it's a 28-pager, it's a booklet, but it literally, if you fill out all the questions and all the data that's useful to national baseline, you could easily spend a day of time, because it's actually good for evaluating your program too. But anyways, getting back to this, of just getting that questionnaire so we get, as much of a response rate as possible. So it's a good reflection of the community.
Okay, no, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Are there any other action items that we should be taking on here in the short run?
No, I think the biggest one is I wanted to say hi and kind of the second kickoff here with the Tree Advisory Committee and get to know you a little bit. Wish I was in person. Next one, that's my intention and plan is to be down in Fitchburg in person because we have, I think, let me see, the June 12th, August 14th, September 11th, those are the ones you plan to meet. My goal is to be at each one of those, ideally in person, just to give a brief update of where we're at.
Perfect.
And yeah. Who was the review committee that did the selection for, obviously we got selected. Was the Tree Advisory Committee part of that role? I was just curious if you saw the RFP response we had.
It was mostly me and Scott and myself, Scott Endo, my boss, and myself. And then we brought, and then when it went through, then our review process went through this committee, went through Parks Commission, and went through council, which is why it took a little bit while. So like Scott and I reviewed it and scored them, and then we submitted our scores in all three proposals to this committee, and then they voted to go with our recommendation, and the Parks Commission did the same thing, and then council did the same thing.
Well, two things. One is the time frame. We just got to kick off with City of Indianapolis, which was a 6-month process. So yours was nothing.
Yeah.
Time-wise. Yeah. The quickest I've ever had was 2 weeks, that is just rapid.
That's a lot.
Anyways, yeah, but that was actually utility. It was the governance process was outside. Quickest was probably 3 weeks with the governance process. But the second part is if you didn't see the RFP, if that's useful to share with the Tree Advisory Committee, because that'd give a sense of what the project's all about. And another key thing is with this, how we designed it was rather than reinvent the wheel of here's another goals and objectives or whatever structure you use, we're going to tag it in with the city's strategic plan. So the approach that they're using for that, we're going to use a consistent approach because if it works in that regard, why reinvent the wheel? Plus, we can then tie it in with the different action items that plan has. So if you didn't know that, that's our approach for this strategic plan.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we really appreciate you being with us, Rich, and I'm glad that we were able to kind of show our process here for an hour, so you guys can kind of see our inner workings.
Yeah. Was this a normal routine, or was it just you put it all on for me to give me some insight?
I don't know either. This is my first meeting too, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it depends it depends on this topic at hand.
It was a unique situation.
Can I just say too, I really appreciate the willingness to go to like existing events. People will find out about me that I like the standard evening public outreach events, but I really want to try and get us more to unconventional means of getting out to people and communicating with people. So I appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Not just digital.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, it's delightful meeting you.
Likewise.
And Rich, if you need anything from us anytime, pick up the phone. We're always available. We really are very invested in this process. We're very excited for this project. And if you ever get to a point where you're like, I need to talk to someone from Fitchburg, we are here. So don't hesitate.
Well, the plan is you'll probably get a phone call from me at least once a week, if not once every 2 weeks.
And that's fine.
As this starts unfolding now.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Rich. We really appreciate your time and attention.
My pleasure, and enjoy the rest of this evening when it has in tune for you.
All right.
Thanks. Right.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Rich. All right, next we have our election. Yeah. I know.
I'm going to hang around for the rest of the meeting if that's
awesome.
Okay. Well, this
Perfect.
is also unusual.
Perfect. No, this is good. You're more than welcome to do that.
Right.
So,
thank you.
All right. So, anyway.
All right. So I am. What is that rolling off?
Is this your last meeting?
This is my last meeting as chair. So we need to nominate a new chairperson. The rules are such that we serve now for 2 years, and you can do 2 consecutive terms at the most, and then somebody else needs to be chair. So.
So you're charming out? You've done 2 in a row.
Correct. Yeah. So,
You did an awesome job. I just want to say thank you very much.
You're welcome. Oh, you guys aren't getting rid of me. I'm just not going to chair. Yeah. So, can I make a nomination or just?
Yes.
Okay. So I would like to nominate Anne as our next chair for Tree Advisory. So, can I have a second?
Sure.
All right. You willing to do it?
Yeah. Do you accept the nomination?
I was looking at her like,
I know.
okay, what's up? I'm gonna count on you to give me some coaching, because I've never done anything like this before. And I don't know, like, Robert's Rules of Order or that stuff. But, yeah, I've got the time.
Okay. Yeah, I'll help.
Yeah.
Wherever you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very easy to get a hold of. You know where I live. Yeah.
Yeah, you're in my subdivision, yeah.
All right, so everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, opposed? All right, I'll move, so Anne is the next chair. Thank you.
Yay,
very much.
congratulations,
Willing to
thank you
do
very
that.
much. Yay, it's kind of a lot of work. Charles done it, you've done it, now you know, yeah, but it's good. And thank you for being willing to do it. And if you get sick of me, just be like, stop it. So.
No, we spent all this time getting you to be your hours up. That's
Yes.
not, we're not sick yet.
Good. Thank you for saying that, Brandy. Yes.
And I think that's a really good thing for.
Yeah, this group has
For a
accomplished a
committee.
lot in terms of getting a full-time forester, getting a tree preservation ordinance passed, getting, looking at site plans and saying like, hey, get the trees on the site plans, please, which is very key. Being kind of a really
I've been on this committee and done this work. And one of the things that I've learned just about policies and practices for cities and for our neighbors and for everyone is it really takes our elected officials, our staff, and volunteers. And I did not know how important we all were as volunteers until I started doing this. But it is. It takes all 3 working together. And you all have little bit different roles, but you collaborate and you dovetail and you learn and so.
I would completely
Thank you all. Yeah. Okay, that's done. I'm excited about that.
All right, report from departments. So I didn't write this down too carefully because I'm afraid to talk about it. Maybe I kind of put it in here. But so we have 2 grants that were, well actually 3, but 2 tree planting grants that we're working on this spring. And so we did, for Arbor Day, we did a dog park event, which was paid for by the Million Trees grant from Alliant Energy. So thank everyone for doing that. And then we did an Earth Day event at Green Meadows Park. I still owe them a tree or 2, but that event happened. And then in Hugo Jamestown, we had, which Micah was at, you were at, several of you were at, which was awesome. We had that federally funded canopy renovation, and it happened, and those trees are in the ground.
It was super exciting.
So I hate to talk about it because that money was supposed to get yanked apparently, but it came through. And then as part of that, which some of you I think have noticed, we also did a canopy renovation in the Southdale neighborhood. It looks like a new neighborhood. So we were able to, Public Works was really awesome, and they took down all the crummy ash trees, all the frost-cracked, crazy, half-dead maple trees. They really did a nice job of, taking down all the crummy trees there, and we replaced everything this spring. Plus, we captured almost every planting space there is in that neighborhood. So there's a few more that we need to plant in next week.
So this was Southdale?
Yeah, and then because we just were ready, because we're always ready, there was a project from that same grant that didn't happen in Madison, and I was like, Traceway Drive. And so today, they planted Traceway Drive. So we actually did get, even though that money in theory was not supposed to come through, we got almost 100 trees planted from that project. So I don't know, I don't really want to make a big deal about it because I'm afraid someone might yank them out of the ground. But so that worked out. In theory, that was supposed to be like Hugo Jamestown one year, Southdale the next year, and then Traceway/Golf Course the next year, but we just did it all this spring. So I don't know. I'm still a little nervous to talk about it, but we're almost done. I mean, we have 6 trees
In the
left.
ground.
Yeah.
That's where it's at.
Exactly.
Take good news or you can get it at this point.
Well, exactly. Like there's 6 trees left in Southdale. They're getting planted next week, and there's about 8 left on Traceway, and they're getting planted next week as well. So I'm like, well, even if that doesn't happen, we're way ahead of where we thought we'd be 3 months ago. So anyway, so I don't know what to say about it other than that happened, and we're pretty much where we thought we'd be 3 years from now with that money. So with that project. So anyway. Exactly, take the win. That's all I'm saying.
Awesome.
I didn't really, yeah, it is awesome. It's great. So I didn't want to make a big deal about it because I don't really want to let anyone know. But I'll tell you, like, that happened, which is awesome. And that was probably the highlight of this spring so far, was that we were able to capitalize on that infrastructure money to get trees planted where we had asked for trees to be planted. So, and it looks, and you'll see, I mean, if you go through Southdale, it looks so much nicer. You know, like all of those terraces now have trees, you know, at a 30-foot spacing, it's tremendous. Haha, see, joke, tremendous. Anyway, so.
Tremendous. Yeah,
Tremendous.
okay.
So anyway, after a long meeting, I just had to throw a joke in there. So at any rate, that's probably the highlight of the staff report. We did all kinds of other stuff too. And I will say, you know, to Linda's point, it takes a village, because part of the reason why we couldn't plant Traceway Drive is because the apartment complex there had these dead ash trees that were hanging over the terrace, and there was we could not really responsibly underplant that because those trees were falling apart, and you know, and the way they were taken down would have smashed anything that was on the terrace anyway. So we really had to get those trees out of the way. And building inspection, when that complex was sold, I don't even know when, sometime last winter, building inspection, I don't know how they did it, but they said, hey, when this is sold, the new owners have to take these dead trees down, and they did it. So
I wondered what prompted that. Yeah.
I mean, because I told building inspection, said the only thing that's keeping me from planting trees on Traceway Drive, which has a lovely 6-foot terrace, we really would love to get trees in there. We're building the hub. We've got the golf course. We really would love to get trees on Traceway Drive all the way from Post Road to Fish Hatchery, but we can't because of these, you know, 25 dead ash trees that are never gonna, you know, they're just falling apart. And I really, like, I planted 2 trees where I can, and there's nothing else I can do. So I'm not sure how they did it, but those trees came down, and I think it was partly, you know, building inspection saying like, hey guys, this is an issue. Can you please get it taken care of? And they did. So I was super grateful. And then in Southdale, the whole reason we were able to take advantage of that is because Public Works got all those trees down really in short order, which was awesome, and ground the stumps and restored the terraces. So we were all set to go. So if anything fell through anywhere else, we got those trees, which really was kind of nice. So anyway, that's I don't know, there's a lot more on the staff report than that, but that's kind of the big ticket item that I didn't really make a big deal about because I didn't want to.
It takes a huge amount of coordination to do all that.
Yeah, no, it did.
It's really something.
It did, yeah. So, and while we're at it, I may just plug our prairie volunteers. We had a record amount of seed collected, cleaned, and installed this spring. It was amazing. I mean, like, we had pounds and pounds of really high quality prairie seed that volunteers, some of you included, went out and collected.
Is this mostly from Sue or other people too?
Well, mostly she coordinated the whole thing, you know, and she got them cleaned, and we worked with it was impressive. So and we've kind of
She's fiercely focused on that.
Oh my goodness. And then so we had an event this spring, and like she shows up with all these plants that she rescued. It's like, all right, like it's amazing. So the tree thing is turning out awesome, and then like all of our prairies are really coming into. Yeah, exactly. We're getting a lot of help from all of the all of the volunteer work that she does is amazing. So and some of you do that too, which is awesome. So anyway, so long story longer, the prairies were also awesome this spring, which is great. That we overseeded quite a bit, which is great. So anyway, I don't know if anyone has any questions or any kind of comments or.
I just have one. I just thought about the watering, and I know at Jamestown that the Operation Fresh Start is going to do the watering, which is fantastic.
And it's yes.
Talk about bringing community together. I mean, that's wonderful. It's a wonderful school, county, Madison School District county program for adolescents when they teach training skills and they get their GED. And I think that's just wonderful.
Yeah. And so they'll be watering Southdale, they'll be watering Traceway, and they'll be watering Hugo Jamestown.
Oh, really? All of those? Okay, fantastic. Yeah, because I always worry about watering.
Yeah, no, that's a legit concern.
Yeah, great.
I had one question.
Yes.
My wife pointed this out to me. So on the new Lace section of Lacey, so between.
Yep.
So they planted along
Yep.
there. So every however
Yes.
They planted them right where the left turn lane is
Yes.
going to go into
Yes.
Edgewood. Apparently this is
Yes.
known. Okay.
Yes, so, and actually
Yes.
that was, yes,
Yes.
so that was, so I will say that was known actually when we planted those trees, and I couldn't change it because we had the contract. I was like, we're gonna have a left, and part of it is because it changed, so like that project changed time frames and everything so many times. So I was like, well, and then so I said, because it was DOT funded, I'm like, hey, can I just move these trees now? And they said, after 3 years, you can do whatever you want. So I think now I could probably move those.
Okay.
But at the time, I was just like, because some of them ended up being run under a power line. I'm like, I thought this was getting buried. They're like, not until whatever. And I'm just like, what?
And then we're gonna pull the trees out to bury the power line.
I don't know.
Okay.
So,
All
so
right.
you are exactly right, and it was known at the time, and I was like, well, I guess we'll just plant these and hope for the best in terms of so at some point we can probably dig them up. I don't know what to say, but yes, and DOT paid for them, so I was like, well, I guess if it was city money, I think it'd be a different story, but yes,
Okay.
you're 100% right on, and it is a little like, what the heck? So, yes, it's, your wife is very astute, and she's completely correct. So, anyway. Any other questions or comments on what we've been accomplishing so far this spring? And Arbor Day was awesome, so thanks for everyone who came out. And Earth Day was good too, although it rained, but that's fine.
Yeah, sounds great. All right. I think we're done. Are we done? Any other discussion tonight? All right.
I think we're talked out.
Yeah, I think so too. I have a motion to,
I move we adjourn.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, this meeting adjourns.